Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. Now, today we are tackling the life's toughest tackles, both on and off the rugby field. Our guest is Tyler Kania, a powerhouse athlete, coach, and author of The Maniac with no knees. Tyler's story is a roller coaster of resilience, from battling bipolar disorder to overcoming career ending injuries. And he's here today on the Mindful Living to show how he turned his struggles into strengths, all while keeping his signature grit and humor. So grab your favorite cup of beverage, kick back, and get ready to be inspired. Tyler, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great, great. So, Tyler, to kick things off, mental health, it can feel like an invisible opponent. Sometimes we don't even realize it. So, when did you first realize that you were facing a mental health battle, and how did you make sense of it in the early days?
Yeah, like bipolar typically manifests in your mid-20s. But there were signs that, I had some emotional problems, probably in my late teens. Um, the first time I had mania was, I was a pretty good rugby player. I played fly half, which is similar to quarterback in football. And,
Okay.
I won several championships with my college team and got, recruited to play for a premier team with, national team players from all different countries. And I thought that was the direction, that my life was going to go. I thought I was going to, play professional rugby or something like that. And then I ruptured my patellar tendon, when I was 24. And that's when your knee goes into your quad. It happens only once for every 147,000 human years. And it actually happened to me twice. But that first time it happened, I went totally manic. I was out of control. I quit rugby. I quit a six-figure job. I was broken up with by my girlfriend. I moved to New Hampshire for a month and then moved to Idaho across the country. And I really had no explanation for my behavior. It was really, quite frightening, quite strange. And that was kind of the start of, a decade-long battle with an undiagnosed illness that, eventually landed me in a mental health hospital where I finally got the help I needed.
Mm. So, first of all, Tyler, thank you. Thank you for sharing it so openly. And of course, you have also authored a book, which is actually no small feat, especially one as raw and personal as The Maniac with No Knees. Um, what was one of the, the most challenging part of telling your story? And what surprised you most about the process? Did you learn something very deep about yourself from
Y-
this process of writing your book?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was tough for me. I wrote like a lot of narrative, about my life and what the things I was doing in my life were, and the place, time, and things. But it took like a different perspective for me to think, introspectively about how I was feeling, during that time, what my thought process might have been. And even more so, what the people around me were feeling like and how did my behavior affect them. Um, and that was something that my structural editor, Kyle Pichon, really kind of drove home to me. He was like, yeah, I get this is how you were feeling, but how did everyone else feel? And I think that's really necessary when you're writing a book. You want to, show everyone's different opinions. And so that was a challenge, and I had to swallow some hard truths about myself and about the way I acted during certain times. And it's not easy, at times I felt like I was the villain in my own book. But spiritually, what it did for me was it gave me a better understanding of myself, my awareness of the way I think and the way I act and how other people might, look at that. And I think it's really kind of helped me develop as a person.
Mm, that is really, really very, very inspiring, Tyler. I think a lot of our listeners who may be hesitant to even write a journal or pen their own journey, I think they can take a lot of inspiration from you. Also, Tyler, physical injuries, they can sideline even the toughest players, but they also bring mental challenges along with them. So, how did your injuries affect your mental health, and what role did rugby play in your recovery journey?
Yeah. When you rupture your patellar tendon, I say that it's kind of like a compound fracture because when you have a compound fracture, your bone leaves your skin. Well, when you rupture your patellar tendon, your knee ends up halfway up your quad. So the visual effect is quite traumatizing. To be someone who could run a 5-minute mile and could, squat 400 pounds and could do all these exceptional things on the rugby field, to be able to have to, you know, try and walk again, to have to, go to the bathroom by yourself. These things are really challenging. And, when your outlet, when you help your mental health by exercise or by sports and you lose that, it's really tough to find something that can fill the void, while you're trying to get better. I found that, um, the first time I ruptured my patellar tendon was a totally different reaction from the second time. The first time I went crazy. I quit rugby. I didn't play for 5 years. Rugby was what was keeping me going. Rugby was my outlet. It was my passion. And I left that and I didn't prioritize the rehabilitation process. I didn't do, squats anymore or deadlifts anymore, but I did find long distance running, and that led me to win a 5K road race, and it led me to run a marathon 11 months after my ruptured patellar tendon. But it wasn't something that I actively tried really hard to recover from. My mind wasn't in the right place. Whereas the second ruptured patellar tendon, immediately when I went down, I thought, I need to stay involved in rugby. This is something that, makes me feel whole. And, I can't just quit again, because times get tough. And so my rehabilitation process this time has been totally different. I did, my full physical therapy. Then I hired 2 different strength trainers to help give me strength back in my legs. And, I'm not where I want to be. My plan is to play again, and my plan is to play at a high level, the highest I've ever played. But we're not there yet. But we know that we've done everything that we could to get back there because, you know, that's how I battle my mental illness. It's by belonging to a community and it's by having goals. And so that's what keeps me driven at the end of the day.
Very inspiring once again, Tyler. As you mentioned, that there were moments, when you were something like, I'm going to give it up and I won't be able to do this. I can't do this. But you still embraced it all and you went ahead. So some might argue that embracing vulnerability is a strength, while others see it as a sign of weakness. So, how do you balance the toughness of rugby with the openness needed to tackle something as sensitive as mental health challenges?
Yeah. Um, I think that everybody plays rugby for a reason. It's out of all the team sports, there's 15 people on a rugby field per each team, so 30 people. Um, you need to rely on your teammates. You need to understand that you're not going to score alone. You have to pass the ball. You have to tackle alongside your teammates. You have to, ruck and, um, support your teammates, and you're prepared to, you know, blood, sweat, and cry with them. And, as tough as rugby players are, I think, in reality, a lot of them are sensitive, and a lot of them deal with some really terrible things. Concussions can really impact someone's life, and as can other injuries like the ones that I've had. And so to know that somebody feels the same way, or, somebody's willing to be vulnerable, I think it only, moves the needle closer. It only brings people closer to one another. And I think it helps individuals as well.
Definitely. Also, Tyler, your journey shows incredible resilience, which I think not, but not everyone has that same level of support or resources. So, how do you reconcile the idea of personal responsibility in mental health with the systemic challenges people face in accessing care?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. So, your journey, it shows incredible resilience, but not everyone has the same level of support or resources. So, how do you reconcile the idea of personal responsibility in mental health with the systemic challenges, how people face in accessing care or support?
Yeah. I think that I'm really fortunate, for all of my, um, curses, for all of my afflictions. I think that I grew up with privilege, with, parents with money and parents that were together, and educated parents. Um, and it's given me a lot more access to, better jobs, better healthcare, better everything. Um, I did get those things taken away from me. I have trouble in the workforce because of my disability, and, healthcare can be really challenging when it's controlled by the employer. Um,
Okay.
so, you know, sometimes it's tough to get care, but there are resources that the state provides. And, I think that, at first we looked for private mental health institutions to put me into, ones that cost quite a bit of money. But we ended up settling on a public one, the largest one in Connecticut, the Institute of Living. And, they had good resources, not great, but, it got me better, so I can't really complain. I think that if somebody, is struggling, and maybe they're apprehensive to take medicine, I think that they should give it a shot. I think that they should keep an open mind, even if, the first couple medicines are giving you adverse side effects, because I battled that and it's really tough. But eventually, if you can settle on the right medicine, it can go a long way. So I urge people to go and get help, go and get therapy, and go start on your journey to recovery.
Absolutely. Great, great, Tyler. That was really a great advice from your own life journey. So, if our listeners they wish to connect with you, how and also get access to your book, how they can do that?
Yeah. Well, I have a website, tylerkania.com, tylerkania.com. And you can go there and you can pre-order the book. I won't ask for any money just yet. But it'll basically ask for your email so that when my book is ready, which is probably going to be early February, then you will get an email notification, to be able to buy my book. You can also follow me on Instagram at Tyler _Kania. And I share most of my journey, with all of my followers. So, definitely give that a shot. And, yeah, I hope I hope people find my book, and I hope that people that are looking for help can use my book as a source of knowledge for that sort of thing.
Definitely, definitely. Tyler, thank you so much. It's so commendable to see. I mean, in spite of tackling some of life's toughest opponents on the field, in the hospital, and in your own mind, and it's really inspiring to see you come out swinging. So, thank you for sharing your journey and also helping us. Reminding us with your story. While we can't always control the game, we can always rewrite our playbook. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, I would like to say mental health isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing up for yourself every single day. Keep taking those small steps, stay curious, and never forget the power of asking for help. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off from the Mindful Living podcast. Be kind to yourself and keep living mindfully. And don't forget to connect with Tyler. We'll have all the details in the show notes. Thank you.